Oh hey guys, caught me drilling my last hole here. Getting ready to plant some potatoes, making some planters. So be sure to stay tuned. I'll show you what I've been doing here. And also at the end of this, Jeff from Bobblehead Homestead has invited my wife and I to do the garden collaboration, answer 5 questions. He was actually tagged by Grizz270. I already follow both of those channels. Awesome guys. I'm going to put their links down in the description. I'd encourage you to go over there and show them some love. Tell them Stoney Creek sent you. If you aren't already subscribers, be sure to subscribe to them as well. Okay, well, as I was pointing out earlier, I was just drilling my last hole. Bought these mineral tubs from our feed store. These are cattle mineral tubs. Your local feed store probably would have these. They're already used. Who knows, maybe your neighbor has them, or if you're a cattle farmer, you got them yourself. But I come to find out they make awesome potato planters. Our soil here is so sandy and rocky, it's just nasty for potatoes to grow, and it's even worse for me to try to dig them up. So we use the planters. First thing I do, I use 3/8 paddle bit. I'll drill some holes in the bottom of this. Of course, if it rains, you don't want these jokers filling up with water. So I just put a few holes in here. No real rhyme or reason. Just put a few in there. So if it does rain, water's got a way to get out of there and it's not going to rot your plants. So let's put this joker over here and I'll show you the next steps. So next thing we do is take a little bit of old hay or old straw. We'll just put that right in the bottom. I'll fix that here in a second. What that does, it's going to do 2 things for me. When I put the soil on, it's going to keep soil from just falling through those holes, but it's also going to put a little bit of a barrier between the soil and the bottom, so when water does come through, it'll be able to leach out of those holes all right. It won't be compacted in that soil. So here I figured I'd just show you. Each one of these have got a little bit of straw in the bottom, a little bit of hay. Now we're going to fill these up with about a foot of dirt. Then we'll put our seedlings in there. Of course, I'm sure most of you already have heard about the planter concept, where after the plants start growing, then you put another 6 inches of soil on there, another 6 inches. Well, let's go ahead and get this dirt on there and we'll get the potatoes put in. Okay, and there's just a look. You can see they're only filled up about a foot, maybe a little bit more, but it'll settle down after we add the water to it. I'm going to take a second and show you how we do potatoes. There's probably several schools of thought. Some people put the whole potato in the ground. Some people will just cut slivers around the eyes. My buddy Tim TrollForge has got a neat experiment series going on right now that you can check out, where he's just taking the eyes themselves to see how they'll do. Pretty neat video series. But the way I was taught, I guess old habits are hard to break. I'm just going to quarter these things up. The important part is just to make sure a quarter does have an eye. We're going to be planting 2 different types of potatoes. It's a Pontiac red, and I can't say the other one, but it's a white potato. I'll put the names of them in the description when I'm talking about the video. And here you can see we've got a few slivers to throw in there. So I've got my lovely assistant here that's going to actually put the potatoes in the ground. She's the gardener of our family, not me. I normally just do what she tells me. Okay, explain to us how you're setting them in there.
Basically, I'm just trying to evenly space the potatoes because sometimes all of them will sprout, sometimes only a few of them will sprout. So you just want to kind of put them evenly. That way if a couple don't make it, then you've still got potatoes to grow. And you want to put them usually so that the eyes are up, because the eyes are what the actual plant grows up out of. That's where your stem and your foliage comes from. So you want to give that a clear shot to come up. And then just gently kind of press them down into the dirt. And then you can cover them in later. It's a nice thing about using these tubs is that you put the dirt in and it's nice and soft. You're not fighting it to get the potatoes in.
Okay, for the next step, we're going to put a little bit of straw on top of that. That's going to retain what moisture's in there. It'll protect from straight down rains. And also when we go to water it, it's going to keep it from just flooding out. I might mention that this straw actually came out of a goat barn. So this is pre-fertilized straw. Let's go take a look, see what that looks like. Then when we go to add dirt, we'll just put dirt right on top of that straw. And then add more straw on top of that. That allows the soil to aerate a little bit so it doesn't get so compacted. It lets those potatoes grow up nice and big.
One of the other things the straw does is that it helps keep weeds down. The potatoes will be strong enough to actually grow up through the straw, but the weeds usually are too weak to push through that layer of straw, so they end up being smothered.
And then the final step here, we're going to give them a little drink. I'd forgotten to mention earlier that soil we use is actually a compost. That's our 3-year compost. Some other video I'll show you our compost piles and explain how we do our composting here.
When you're watering your potatoes, you want to make sure that you're not over or under watering your potatoes. You'll want to make sure that you pull the straw back and you actually put your hand down into the soil to check it to make sure if it's dry, obviously it needs water. But if you stick your hand down in there and the soil is just sopping wet, you've overwatered it and you need to let it dry.
And that's more words of wisdom from the boss. After umpteen years, I've learned to listen to her. Hopefully you enjoyed watching us plant the potatoes. So we're going to answer these 5 questions that Jeff over at Bobblehead Homestead has tagged us in. So why do you garden?
One of the reasons mainly that we garden is just to have control over our own food, to be able to grow the things we like, and then we can either eat it fresh or we can can it or freeze it or whatever we want for the later months when it's hard to get fresh produce.
And I would second that. We want to know what we're putting into our bodies. As I'm sure you've seen, I've got lots of body, but we try to stay out of the grocery stores as much as possible, so we like to grow our own gardens. And we grow that for us. We give some away to family, friends, do a lot of canning. Also, the critters around here gets to enjoying that bounty. So question number 2, so why do you YouTube? I would say it's a couple of different reasons. One is so that we have a video diary of what we do out here on the farm. And the other would be just to be able to help other people that's starting out. Hopefully we can do something that show them a new way, an easier way, a different way, or just a different way of thinking. Give people that independence, get them thinking outside the box. And whether you're in a rural area like us or even an urban apartment, you want to do planter type garden, you know, you can certainly do that. We just want to hopefully give you the tools to be able to make whatever you decide successful. Have anything to add to that one?
No, I think that hits it.
So number 3, how long have you been gardening?
I've been gardening pretty much since I was about 11, 12 years old. My family had moved to Oklahoma and we'd moved in with my grandparents, and they always had gardens. So I would go out with my grandmother, my grandfather, and I would help them in the garden. And then, of course, my mother and I moved to town, and we didn't garden for a while. And then when we moved out here in 2009, we started taking back some of the gardens that had already been here that had been overgrown before we had bought the house, and we've been gardening ever since.
And for me, I was raised around my grandma, who of course was raised in the Depression era, so as a kid I didn't know anything other than gardens, and that was well before Xbox and a lot of those things. I'm showing my age, but gardening's always been a part of life. I will admit, out of our family, the wife is a much better gardener than I am. She is the green thumb. I'm the big eater, she's the green thumb. So she plans out our gardens and points and grunts, tells me where to put stuff, and life works out pretty well that way. So what kind of things do you grow? And as I said, I grow whatever she tells me to, so I'm gonna let the wife answer that one.
We grow basically a variety of things. A lot of stuff you'll find in most gardens, tomatoes, peppers. We'll grow like some lettuces, salad greens. I like to grow okra. I like to grow a lot of like different flowers, things that the bees and the other pollinators will enjoy. I grow lots of sunflowers just because I like to look at them out in the yard. What else do we grow?
I don't know, tons of stuff. You'll have to stay tuned this summer to see everything we grow, because it's a pretty extensive list. And although we've got our little potatoes here and our little, I say small, but our raised bed garden behind us, over that direction we've got a big garden. Over that direction we've got tomatoes and peppers and that type of garden. We've got gardens around, so just stay tuned and we'll talk about each garden individually. So what is your favorite thing to grow? So my favorite thing to grow would probably be the tomatoes, the peppers, everything that you can make into salsa or paste. Easy to can, great to use in a number of dishes. And then of course potatoes. I'm a meat and potato type of guy, if you can't tell. So kind of like Forrest Gump and the shrimp. I like fried potatoes, I like hash browns, I like potato cakes, well, you get the idea. If it's potatoes, I'm all about that.
My favorite thing to grow probably is like the things you have to dig up, like the potatoes, the garlic. It's just satisfying to get in there and see what's actually there, because you don't know during the whole growing season. You see the plant on top, but you really don't know what's going on below the surface. You can kind of feel around in there, but it's better to not try to disturb your potatoes while they're growing. But it's really satisfying at the end of the season to just dump the buckets and get in there and see what you get. It's like a little scavenger hunt. You get to hunt down all the potatoes and throw them in a bucket and then clean them off. The same thing with the garlic. It's super satisfying to dig it up at the end of the season.
And with that answers our 5 questions. And that also segues, we're supposed to tag 5 channels. But just like not knowing what's in the soil, I'm just going to tag you. So tell me if you're following along with this tag. If you're doing a video yourself, be sure to put in your video that I'm the one that tagged you. And I'll add your channel down in the links below and put you as a tag there, or rather I will put a link to that video in this description. I'll edit that. And I'll do a shout out to you next video. And as always, appreciate you watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, all that other good stuff. And we'll see you next video. Wave at the camera. What was that? That old, what was that?
Say goodnight, Gracie.
Say goodnight, Gracie.
Good night, Gracie.